that influences the release of several neurotransmitters in the central nervous system, your brain, and your spinal cord. As noted earlier, and this is in your book, adenosine levels gradually increase the longer a person is awake. When adenosine levels reach a certain level in your body, the urge to sleep greatly intensifies and melatonin comes along. Okay, so it's part of your circadian rhythm. Caffeine's adenosine blocking ability has another effect. It stimulates indirect and mild dopamine release in the brain's reward system, making your brain want more of it. Taken to excess, caffeine can produce anxiety, restlessness, increased heart rate, and can disrupt normal sleep patterns. Excessive caffeine use can also contribute to the incidence of sleep disorders, including non-REM parasomnias like sleepwalking, which I don't think I do. Nicotine, so anything that has nicotine in it, that's what we're talking about. It could be nicotine pouches, it could be any type of vape, it could be a Juul, it could be anything you wanted it to be, cigarettes, anything that has nicotine in it. That's what I'm talking about, okay? A stimulant drug found in tobacco products. So nicotine is found in all tobacco products, including pipe tobacco, cigars, cigarettes, smokeless tobacco. 25% of American adults are cigarette smokers. I don't think that might be true anymore. And another 5% use other tobacco products. I bet you that you could reverse that now. Nicotine increases mental alertness, reduces fatigue and drowsiness. It's a stimulant, that's what it does. Brain imaging studies show that nicotine increases neural activity in many brain areas, including the frontal lobes, thalamus, hippocampus, and amygdala. So it helps you form new memories. It turns your emotional center on a little bit. Your thalamus, where you process sensory information, it messes with that a little bit as well. Okay? Frontal lobes, your decision-making processes. Nicotine is highly addictive, both physically and psychologically. People who start smoking for nicotine's stimulating properties often continue smoking to avoid the withdrawal symptoms. The withdrawal symptoms, irritability, right? Along with intense craving for cigarettes, withdrawal symptoms include jumpiness, irritability, tremors, headaches, drowsiness, brain fog, the opposite of what nicotine gives you, and lightheadedness, okay? Highly addictive. All right, amphetamines and cocaine, a class of stimulant drugs that arouse the central nervous system and suppress appetite. So originally, these were used as diet pills, okay? So often called speed or uppers because that's what they do. They increase the speed and transmissions and uplift you into this euphoric state, right? So they suppress appetite, and they used to be prescribed as diet pills. Crashing is something that happens with withdrawal here. Withdrawal symptoms of fatigue, deep sleep, intense mental depression, and increased appetite. This is another example of drug rebound effect. The opposite of what the drug does is the withdrawal. Benzodrine and dexedrine are prescription amphetamines. Methamphetamine, also known as meth, is an illegal drug. It can be easily manufactured in home or street laboratories. You've seen Breaking Bad, and if you haven't, you're missing a great TV show. Then we have cocaine, a stimulant drug derived from the coca tree. Cocaine produces intense euphoria, mental alertness, and get this one, self-confidence. People who abuse cocaine and who are on cocaine become a little high and mighty, right? Confident, overconfident. These psychological responses occur because cocaine blocks the reuptake of 3 different neurotransmitters. So it increases the availability of these 3 neurotransmitters. Dopamine, rewarding sensation, ooh, this feels good. Serotonin, enhancing your mood, all right? And norepinephrine, which is just adrenaline in the brain. Blocking reuptake potentiates or increases the effects of these neurotransmitters. Crack cocaine, more concentrated form of cocaine, usually smoked. Stimulant-induced psychosis or cocaine-induced psychosis is overuse of cocaine or a stimulant to the point where you leave reality. That's the definition of psychosis, is a break from reality, a mental break from reality. You're no longer in tune with what reality is. okay? Here's just more information on meth and how it works in the brain. Some pictures of 10 years of meth use up there, and then some mugshots between the two. Originally arrested. People on meth usually they pick at their faces. That's why a lot of times you'll see these spots on people's faces, because that's what they do. They pick. Psychedelic drugs. This is a category of psychoactive drugs that create sensory and perceptual distortions, alter mood, and affect your thinking. Mescaline, a psychedelic drug derived from the peyote cactus. This is what you imagine, in the middle of the desert, a group of whatever, cowboys, Native Americans, whatever it is, they could possibly be abusing, mescaline, okay, by smoking peyote. Psilocybin is known as magic mushrooms or shrooms or whatever street drug name they call it, but the real name is psilocybin. It's derived from the psilocybin mushrooms, which are sometimes referred to as magic mushrooms or shrooms. Psilocybin has been used since 500 BC in religious rites in Mexico and Central America. It is a mind-altering, conscious-altering drug. Okay, psychedelic. So again, your sensory perceptions will not be the same when you abuse psilocybin. LSD is a synthetic psychedelic drug, so it was synthesized in the late 1930s. LSD is far more potent than mescaline or psilocybin, and you don't, just 25 micrograms or 1/1,000,000th of an ounce of LSD can produce profound psychological effects with relatively few psychological or physiological changes. So something about psychedelic drugs is that a lot of times it doesn't cause a withdrawal because it doesn't cause a physiological change in the human's brain. So that's an interesting fact about these things. But you take too much of it, it can change you forever. But yeah. So LSD and psilocybin are very similar chemically to the neurotransmitter serotonin, the mood stabilizer, which is involved in regulating moods and sensations. LSD and psilocybin mimic serotonin in the brain, stimulating serotonin receptor sites in the somatosensory cortex where you process sensory information. Marijuana is lumped into psychedelic drugs. So marijuana, a psychoactive drug derived from the hemp plant. Cannabis sativa, used to make rope, cloth, but when its leaves, stems, flowers, and seeds are dried and crushed, the mixture is called marijuana. Which is its real name, I guess, is cannabis. One of the most widely used illegal drugs, and I guess legal now in a lot of the United States. But its active ingredient is a chemical, so THC, you've heard of that before probably, but tetrahydrocannabinol. When marijuana is smoked, THC reaches the brain in less than 30 seconds. One potent form of marijuana, hashish, is made from the resin of a hemp plant. Hashish is sometimes eaten, and really, I guess in these days, people call it dabs, but it's just concentrated forms of THC. At high doses, marijuana can sometimes produce sensory distortions that resemble a mild psychedelic experience, lumping it into psychedelics, but that is somewhat misleading. Low to moderate doses of THC typically produce a sense of well-being, mild euphoria, and a dreamy state of relaxation. Senses become more focused, and sensations a little bit more vivid. Taste, touch, smell may be enhanced. Time perception might be altered. Time could possibly go slower or faster. So shown to be helpful in the treatment of pain, epilepsy, hypertension, nausea, glaucoma, and asthma. There's another part of cannabis that is widely used, CBD, and that right there is super helpful for epilepsy. If you, for some reason, suffer from seizures, epileptic seizures, high doses of CBD will help relieve that. I've read studies where 300 seizures a day are reduced down to 3 because of the use of CBD, and this is in children. In cancer patients, THC can prevent the nausea and vomiting caused by chemotherapy. However, the medical use of marijuana is limited and politically controversial. Again, so like I said, half the population in the United States, it's legal, and half the population, it's not. It's a widely debated thing. It almost feels like what alcohol went through, with Prohibition. It feels like we're kind of watching that in this moment of history as well. Oh, hold on. All right, almost ran out of battery. Okay, so on the negative side, marijuana interferes with muscle coordination and perception and may impair driving ability. When marijuana and alcohol are used in combination, it intensifies the dangerous combination for drivers. I think this map is a little old now, but most marijuana users do not develop tolerance or physical dependence. It doesn't really change the brain. Chronic users of high doses can develop some tolerance to THC, which means that they would need more THC for it to have its original effects. Some health benefits, body effects of cannabis. Okay, now designer drugs. Synthesized in a laboratory rather than derived from naturally occurring compounds. This is a loose collection of psychoactive drugs that are popular at dance clubs, parties, and the all-night dance parties called raves. That was in your book. MDMA, ecstasy, Molly is a synthetic club drug that combines stimulant and mild psychedelic effects. Ecstasy was developed by a German pharmaceutical company in 1912 for possible uses as an appetite suppressant, but it was not tested on humans until the 70s. At low doses, MDMA acts as a stimulant, but high doses it has mild psychedelic effects. People who have taken ecstasy also say that the drug makes them feel loving, open, and closer to others, also often called the love drug. Dissociative anesthetics. So when we say anesthetics, we're talking about the things that knock you out so you can have surgery or have a baby or get your teeth drilled. So dissociative anesthetics is a class of drugs that reduce sensitivity to pain and produce feelings of detachment and dissociation. That's what dissociation is. It is, breaking off into another stream of consciousness. So this includes the club drugs PCP and ketamine. So PCP is also known as angel dust, and ketamine could be known as Special K. Originally developed as anesthetics for surgery in the late 1950s, both PCP and ketamine deaden pain and at high doses can induce a stupor or coma. Because of their psychological effects, these drugs were largely abandoned for surgical use in humans. Because they noticed that it did something else. It caused a detachment between a person and who they truly were, and created almost like a monster or something like that. I've said this before, but my father is a police officer, and he says some of the most dangerous people that you come in contact with are people who smoke this stuff called Love Boat, which is like PCP, sprinkled into some sort of, with marijuana, and these people are dangerous. They're dangerous because they're not themselves. They don't feel pain, they don't feel anything, they're not necessarily even their own self at that moment. So these are the people you could possibly catch, walking naked down the middle of the street, jumping on cars or trying to jump on cars that are moving, because they have no idea about reality, okay? Rather than producing actual hallucinations, PCP and ketamine produce marked feelings of dissociation and depersonalization, feelings of detachment from reality, including distortions of space, time, and body image are common. This last slide right here, just kind of putting stimulants and depressants, on opposite sides and showing you how they affect the human body. Take a look at it if you want. But we're done.